Hey everybody, so there was a recording issue with this episode, so we're just going to be using an audio visualizer, so feel free to listen to this like a podcast. Really sorry about that. It's totally my fault. I just forgot to check how full my drive was, so the recording was interrupted right at the end, and none of the footage was recoverable. So anyway, it happens. I'm really sorry. Here's the episode.
Welcome back to Absolutely Marvelland DC. My name is Benny, that is Sal, that is Dylan, and we come together on a regular basis to talk about your favorite movies, TV shows, and apparently Marvel lawsuits. So this is going around right now that Steve Ditko's family is suing Marvel to get back the rights to Spider-Man, and Marvel is counter-suing Steve Ditko's family to go against that. The internet is ablaze. There's tons of misinformation, tons of rumors, and tons of idiots going on Twitter being like, guys, this means we're losing Spider-Man. It honestly looks like to me, back when Sony was like, no, you can't use Spider-Man. And the entire internet was like, we have content. Everyone talk about this. So,
well, it's been a contentless time.
Yeah,
it's been what they call a slow news week. So it's time to talk about this. And the other thing, the real thing, the sexy title is Spider-Man, but the real problem is Doctor Strange, because Stan Lee didn't really care that much about Doctor Strange in terms of like ownership.
Right.
So there's like a paper trail that says like, oh no, Steve made all that. He loved Doctor Strange. He made all that stuff. He had the idea for the character and the design and the whole motivation and all of it. Steve Ditko practically is his character. I just wanted him, to be a jerk when he started and then become a sorcerer at the end of it. Like there were like handwritten letters that like can be proven. So if anyone's gonna go anywhere, it would be Doctor Strange, which is kind of frustrating and sad because
he's finally getting
Marvel
the limelight.
Doesn't really care. Well, like Marvel doesn't really care about Doctor Strange anyway.
Yeah.
Like the Marvel Studios loves him and puts him in everything, but Marvel Comics can't get a run going.
I think it's also like important to clarify that I think there's a very, very low chance that there's any circumstance where the Ditko estate will get the rights to these characters back and then we'll never see them again. Because if they win, right, Marvel's going to pay them whatever fee they need to continue putting them in stuff. We might see less like Doctor Strange comics or whatever. We'll definitely not see less Spider-Man comics because he's Spider-Man.
With respect to Spider-Man, it is all about getting paid.
Right.
With Doctor Strange, it's just I think Doctor Strange is just, oh, he's also in movies and stuff, so I'd like to get paid for that too.
Right.
And he emphatically he created it. The only problem is, and I wanted to throw it out there for clarification's sake, like Doctor Strange is actually arguable. Like Doctor Strange is like a real tangible prospect, whereas Spider-Man is like, yeah, like if I had any hand in the origins of Spider-Man and I did it as a freelancer, I would still sue just to get paid off, to have some, because of how much gravy he makes. Right.
So before we go into the opinions of this, I just want to go into the actual research we have done, just so we have the clarification out there. So what actually is going on is Steve Ditko is at a certain point in copyright law, the original creators can get it back if it was made for a company. Right. A lot of people are using the examples of what happened with Friday the 13th and Hellraiser, in which one person made a property for a company, and then that company ran that property into the ground, and the creator got it back because it was tossed on hands. They didn't know what they were doing, and they just let it lapse back. Both Hellraiser went with Clive Barker, and I had the name pulled up, but it's Victor something for Friday the 13th. And a lot of people in the Twitter and the arguments are trying to use that as an example of we're going to lose Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And like you said, Dylan, the chances of us actually losing at Disney, not just throwing money at them, very slim.
Right.
But there's also two cases that are related already to superheroes. In the case of Superman, they lost to the Schuster family and were required to pay portions of earnings to that family. That's also why you see the credits always used with allowances, I think they normally say, or something.
Yeah, with like permission from the Schuster family or something like that. Yeah.
Now, the second case that is more pertainable to Marvel is the Ghost Rider case that happened in 2011 with Nicolas Cage when that movie took off. The creator of Ghost Rider sued for the very same situation as Steve Ditko and Stan Lee and all these other creators trying to get credit. And he lost. So Marvel employs what they like to credit as the Marvel method of creating a character, which is, yes, one person may have named and come up with the idea, but this was discussed in a bullpen, and everyone in the office had a hand as work for hire to create a character. That was how they won the lawsuit for Ghost Rider. They stated that Ghost Rider was made with the Marvel method, and while you may be credited as the guy, this was made under work for hire with a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's also because the Marvel method could either be like a bunch of people in the bullpen talking to just out loud, like Stan Lee going and being like, hey, I got this idea. There, somebody draw it. Or it could be more direct collaboration where it's just, Stan comes in, say it's Stan and Jack. Stan comes in and says, here's what happens, Jack. And then Jack goes home, draws it, comes in the next day, and then Stan writes in all the letters. But either way, there's ambiguity on who owns what. Yeah, who owns what, really it should just be co-creator credits all around. But there's ambiguity there, and it was the Wild West. Nobody was really documenting this stuff, and I think that's why everyone was work for hire and didn't clamp down, because for all they knew, these characters would sell 2 issues and then never be seen again. So
yeah, exactly. And a lot of them did. I mean, the amount of characters that Marvel has made with that method, who have a 2-issue run, or they pop in the background of a Fantastic Four. Look at half of the X-Men or half of the Inhumans.
But even they have movies. And the other element to this lawsuit is that I believe they're trying to dismiss it. Originally, they moved to dismiss it because the copyright law in cases like Hellraiser and Friday the 13th were for employees, and these people who created these characters are not technically employees. They were work for hire. They were freelancers. And so as such, they don't get the same protection, which of course is nonsense. And we're just going to throw that out right there, which is why Disney/Marvel is suing their creators themselves to retain ownership of these characters, just to make sure this doesn't happen again or happen anymore, because they're suing the estates of Steve Ditko, Don Heck, Gene Colan, Don Rico, etc., just to make sure there's no mussing about with Iron Man and Black Widow and so forth.
Right.
Which,
I mean, this is a company whose parent has lobbied copyright law forever to make sure that Mickey Mouse never goes into the public domain, and they will continue to do so.
He's supposed to be right now. Yeah,
absolutely.
He never will, but in theory, he should be. Based on copyright, which actually proves how broken copyright law is. I just want to.
100%.
No, copyright law is a disaster.
I think the next sweep for Mickey Mouse is 2023 or something, but it's not gonna.
Okay,
it won't happen.
It's not gonna happen. No. Yeah, no. Disney has a really clear playbook, and if you watch Disney deal with creators and acquisitions over the decades, you'll see this countersuit against creators is but step 4 in a 25-step process that Disney deals with when it comes to being sued, and especially if there's any grounds for a lawsuit. I've actually witnessed the Disney legal department firsthand, or secondhand, really. A friend of mine was engaged in a contract dispute with Disney, and Disney did. You can set your watch to how Disney operates. In my case, they did win. That is to say, the offended party won. Disney had to pay out, but they still do. They just go by this playbook, and this playbook is just, and it sucks, and it's terrible, because at the end of the day, I don't think anyone here is going to argue that Steve Ditko didn't deserve co-creator credit.
Oh yeah.
Money, extra money. Especially when it turns out that Spider-Man became a Mickey Mouse of 2 corporations, much less one.
It's what I was saying earlier. If we're talking about the Disney managed to make Spider-Man into this $1 million property, and cool, that's cool. Yeah, Steve Ditko's family should get a little bit of money, and he should have gotten a little bit of money, but that's not that much in the grand scheme of things. The problem is, characters like Spider-Man and the Marvel properties are $1 billion properties. Right. We're not talking 1 or 2 million that has to be passed through billions of people. We're talking billions of dollars made off these characters through merchandising and TV shows and movies. And I mean, right now, all of us, I'm the only one, have merchandise in our background. Both of you have spider-related characters in your backgrounds right now.
That's true.
And mine are just in the other room.
Right.
If you tilt your camera a little, there's merch there.
There's no Spider-Man there, but they are in the other room.
Okay.
There's a ton of Spider-Man merch there.
Yeah, but what we're talking about isn't necessarily the moral ramifications of what should have happened, but rather what is happening right now, which is the estate of Steve Ditko, now passed, is suing Marvel, Disney. And I think they're just taking a big shot. I don't think the Ditko estate has designs on, like they're working with, I don't know, Boom Studios or Dark Horse, and they're like, oh no, when we get Spider-Man and Doctor Strange back, we're gonna make all these books and we're gonna do all these cartoons. Like, they don't have Empire Media plans. They are going the legal route to get the biggest payout they can, which, on one hand, it sounds like I'm being condemning. And maybe they also would have been paid if things had been fair in the beginning.
Right.
And it's like, you know what? I would rather this come from Steve himself. I wish Steve had been able to do this 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. He didn't.
Right.
For reasons I don't know, and I'm not going to get into. But he should have. And at the very least, these companies should have treated him fairly.
Yeah,
should have treated all of their creators fairly.
Yes.
Especially when these characters became video game characters and movie characters and TV show characters. Like, we're talking about the Disney thing. Marvel was making money off these characters and these creators for decades before. Like, just from every video game license. I mean, just in the 90s alone, the licensing was huge. And the money only went to a small group of people, none of whom created the characters they were licensing.
Right.
So,
But see, here's where it gets weird and muddled, okay? I agree 100% that the family, the creator should have
Ditko deserved it.
Stevie Ditko deserved it. But now we start talking about descendants and families. And I'm not against the families getting paid for their creation. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to have tons of descendants, or for whatever the reason YouTube turned into the next Disney and suddenly Comic Storian's the biggest thing ever, I would want my descendants to get paid as well. But at what point, if the original creator had no interest or wasn't able to do it, do you just kind of stop with the extra copyright thing? Think about this for a moment. Should the family of the Brothers Grimm be getting paid for the amount of people using those things? Or because those fell into copyright free and had no one to stop it? No, that's fine.
Right.
Now, the family for the Brothers Grimm actually had descendants up until 2015, and then that was the last descendant in the death. So, by the logic of Steve Ditko's family getting paid by Spider-Man, so should the descendants of the Grimm brothers for Cinderella and... So what I pulled off the top of my head, but the fairy tales, Grimm fairy tales have been used thousands and thousands of times by so many people.
Right.
So why are we okay with that family and its descendants not getting full credit or full money? But now we want to argue that Steve Ditko's family gets it. And on the inverse of that, why are Marvel fans so hardcore? Like, no, screw Steve Ditko's family.
Right.
And he gets nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's such... This situation is a hot topic.
It's multifaceted and it is a hot topic. Dylan, what do you think?
And I think, at least for me, like, where it comes down to, like, morally speaking, is, like we've talked about, is that this should already have been a thing, like, 30, 40, whatever, how many years ago.
Yep.
And I see it as, like, okay that they're going for it now because A, the copyright was supposed to be up soon anyway, so they have more of an argument. And B, like, it's righting a wrong that may not have been, like, purposefully done. It could have just been like, oh, Steve Ditko, he feels like he's taken care of, and it's not a concern. And there wasn't precedent there for residuals and stuff like that. But I feel like it's hard to argue against a family trying to get residuals for a character that their father created. going up against like a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to argue in the favor of a company who said that no, you can't put Spider-Man on the grave of my son. Like,
right. Yeah, no, we're not in the business
problem.
of defending monsters here.
But here's the problem, though. Everyone's getting to an emotional state. Well, the corporation doesn't deserve it. The family doesn't deserve it. Like, everyone's getting emotional because it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, what the actual law, the family should be able to get back Spider-Man and decide what they want to do. That's the actual law, as it states right now. Or he should be falling into public domain, like the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. So, like, at the end of the day, Disney should not be allowed to do what they do with copyright law.
No.
Screw all of this over. I think that's the right answer, regardless of how you feel about Spider-Man or the movies or wanting more of him or whatever. Mm-hmm. We make laws for a reason. We shouldn't be allowed to break them because you're a billion-dollar corporation.
Right.
Or if this is going to be the new rule, then that's across the board. Let's stop all these lawsuits. Whoever has the rights of the character at the time of the character has the rights of the character at the time of the character. They do what they want with it.
Well, and it's funny because, like, you know, people. I mean, in this case, everyone's going to also jump on the bandwagon of dogpiling on Stan Lee because, of course, Stan Lee didn't advocate for, you know, Steve's protection or Jack's protection or Don Heck's protection. You know, I think that, you know, we're dealing with artists and we're dealing with creators and we're dealing with people from a different time who, like, Stan Lee was a carnival barker. He recognized, like, if I don't make myself loud and visible, I am just as disposable as all of my colleagues. So he made himself indispensable. And I'm sure at some point he said to Jack or Steve, hey, you're going to get screwed. You gotta be loud. You gotta make it look like you're gonna make trouble for these people, you know, when you are cemented in this thing so that, or maybe he didn't, but none of, like, just because you're predisposed to not being loud doesn't mean that you shouldn't be taken care of. It's just like, it's one of those things where Stan, I think, was smart enough, Machiavellian enough to go, like, I'm going to create a brand for myself, so I'm indispensable. Mm-hmm. And these other guys are like, why would I do that? Who gives a crap?
Yeah, they're just focusing
and it's like, well, they got screwed for it, and that sucks. Like, it really sucks. But, like, it's such a nuanced situation because we're dealing with a corporation which is a soulless entity that doesn't care about anything but making profit.
Right.
And it's like, you can't get mad at, like, a tiger for biting you, right? You can't get, like, upset when a corporation behaves amorally. It's not a person. It can't behave like anything.
Right. It just wants
money. It's an engine that makes money. That is intrinsically amoral. That's why we have laws. Laws are not amoral. They are, like, imposed morality. So these laws should be in effect. I think everyone agrees that the right thing for everybody was getting paid their fair share when it was applicable. Now, I don't know. I feel the same way as I feel about, like, restitution for people who weren't there. You know, like, do I sympathize with the Ditkos? Absolutely. Do I think that Steve Ditko's brother deserves a whole bunch of money because his brother made Spider-Man? Not really.
Yeah. I think the part of the problem is the industry itself. Comic books were never made with the idea of the creators being a big deal. Comics themselves were never really made with the idea of them being a big deal.
Right.
I mean, Marvel went out of business in the 90s, not because Spider-Man was as big as he is. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just the industry. It was always built on the Marvel method mentality. We all sit around, we come up with some cool ideas, we come up with some cool stories. Oh, yeah. Stan, you kind of headlined this one, you get writer credit. Oh, Steve, you did that one, you get writing credit. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it was done. No one foresaw these characters becoming billion-dollar properties the way that they are. And now, since like the 2010s, they've kind of corrected that. Things like Bendis getting credit for his characters and things like that.
Like, well, and then you see backlash for that, you know, where they're like, well, Bendis isn't working here anymore. Don't use those characters anymore. Oh, we are seeing a change, and it's not for the better, where these creators are living longer and they are more educated to the law and to their rights and to they have more access to the fan base and to the public discourse. So, like, they don't, you can't just quietly shuffle them into an apartment and leave them alone forever. Now they're going to be like, hey, I'm at a convention, I'm trying to make money, I don't have any health insurance. Like, the fact that there charities that exist to give comic book creators health insurance is like a crime, like a moral crime. But this isn't the solution. I mean, maybe enough of these lawsuits could be a solution, but I don't think it's not about giving rights to creators. Like, this lawsuit is not going to fix the problem.
No. Marvel's not going to stop making Spider-Man after this. This is
no, they're not. Well, they're not. They're just looking for an extra check, which I like, which maybe they're owed. I'm not actually going to weigh in on that, but I will say that, like, Marvel countersuing right now the estates of Ditko, Heck, Colan, and Rico, and like protecting their interests. Not only is that a classic Disney move, it's also nonsense, and it sucks, and it's just them trying to preserve. They're trying to stem back the tide of change. And it's like, hey, how maybe the estates of all these creators should all work together on like a class action lawsuit to change the way it works for everyone.
Yeah,
maybe the estates of Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, you know, Don Heck, and also Brian Michael Bendis and Scott Snyder and Jason Fabok, like all these different people who work in the industry today, all join in this lawsuit to be like, yo, we need to change the rules because it's not fair. There's too much money right now than there was before. Like, it was amoral then, but there was less money, so it was like it was stupid. But now it's like it's stupid that we are keeping people from any measure of success, or at the very least some kind of restitution for their work. So I don't know. I feel like this is a tough situation. I don't see it changing, but I also don't get the like rattling of sabers right now. I feel like this is more just like, I wish this were bigger. I wish this were something that actually helped make change, as opposed to just annoying corporations so that they tighten the loopholes better. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a burglar telling a rich person, like, hey, you have a couple of holes in your security, before they break in the house. Like, no.
I mean, it's a really, really tough situation because, like, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, if you see an opportunity to get some money out of a, you know, get your bag, I don't care.
Right.
But like, it's tough to weigh in on whose side are you on, because obviously you're not going to be on the side of Disney.
Right.
Because who cares? Why would you? And they
don't need you. They don't need you on
exactly.
their side.
They don't need
like,
your
well, the fan base is on their side, is the shocking amount. Like, screw Steve Ditko, we want Spider-Man movies.
The fan base is on their side because they read a headline and they think that they're never going to see Spider-Man in a movie anymore.
Right.
And, which is just
they didn't educate themselves on what
incorrect.
that actual... Yeah.
So, but like, once you read into it, it's like, it's really, really difficult to be on the side of anyone, just because it's like,
right.
Yeah, this is the Ditko estate, and it's the direct family of the person who created it. But like, I have a sister who I'd never talk to. So like,
right. And should she get like residuals from Orum's Corner if you were to pass,
right.
and the videos made a bunch of
like,
bank?
No.
Like,
but again, we
right,
don't know how
like,
that family works, and we don't know like
right, and like the fan base of. The fan base could not know about your feelings, and so as such, it's just like, well, she's related, ergo, she should get it. Yes, like I don't know. It just, yeah, you're right.
My family's huge. I don't talk to over half of them in like 10 years. Like,
right, but like, what if they, what if they sued for control of your estate, or wanted to get paid for work you did 35 years ago? Seems kind of suspect to me, but like.
I think the idea of some kind of class action lawsuit or any, you know, banding of creators to enact actual change, or even, I would love to see, and this might be public information, I don't know about it, but I would love to see Marvel's like creator contracts when they sign someone as a contractor or as a full-time employee.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
Any character, any story ideas, if those get adapted or if they get used after that person is no longer employed or has passed or whatever, how does that work? Because like, obviously there is something there. We see creators make new characters all of the time in hopes of getting residuals from them. So,
I mean, I feel like we keep stabbing at it, but yes, James Tynion has made like 8 characters on his way out the door at Batman. So,
so is
all of them. I will say,
Tynion,
I do like Ghostmaker. I do like Ghostmaker.
Yeah. I don't.
He makes
Although I have heard there's another reason. It's not just that reason. That it's also because there's like it's like a pain to be able to use certain like established characters because like either they have their own book or they have plans for them. And so he's like, like I think that's the new party line is like, rather than put up with having to deal with like getting to borrow or use an established mainstream character, I'll just create one and then they can't tell me what the rules are for that character.
That's true. I never thought about it like that. And then like, if it does get used, like Miracle Molly on the Titan show, I'm telling you, Dylan, that's who that is.
It's just not happening.
It's so going to be Miracle Molly. But then if they do get used, even better. But
yeah, no, but and I know that Marvel and DC have different kind of contracts when it comes to ownership, or at the very least, like credit and fairness. I'll bet both contracts are garbage. I bet they suck.
Totally. I think the main thing is like, if I had to guess, I would say a character you directly create, you get residuals on, but that's it. Like if your story is adapted, nothing. If like
no,
like if you put Iron Man in a certain situation, like Warren Ellis's Extremis comic
is just Iron Man 3.
Yeah, it's the basis for most of the Iron Man movies. And I mean, I don't really want that guy to get residuals for those stories, but
yeah, but it's not up to you now.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
It's law. Like
you just argued against yourself. Once again,
but I'm
emotions
saying, like,
can't be in it.
like
Emotions
in a world,
can't be in it.
Divorce him from that. Like, I doubt that he got any sort of residuals from Iron Man 3 directly because it's based on Extremis.
Look at
based on the Winter Soldier argument, I'm going to say he did not get anything.
Yeah, totally.
No, but look at Civil War. Sharon Carter gives a speech that is almost word for word J. Michael Straczynski's speech for Captain America in a Spider-Man book. Did he get $1 for
like,
that?
how do you...
Probably not. Yeah, how do you parse that too? Like, listen, here's the thing though, because I like, look, we're three chimps on a couch. We have no idea like what the solution is for this. But I will say that if the Fast and the Furious can mathematically work out who is equally cool and has equal punches and kicks and moments of awesome, like if they can proportionately mathematically work out like the egos of Vin Diesel and The Rock and like Jason Statham and whatnot, then they can figure out how, like, what percentages, what amount of dialogue or character creation or story arc is used in a story. The problem with that, of course, and that's a way down the line thing for me, is like, well, then that just means that Hollywood's going to go, well, then I'll write it myself.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
like,
that's
like great.
That's why like something that I don't know if a lot of people know, but like writers, if you're a writer for Marvel or DC or really anything, you're not allowed to read. You're like legally in your contract, you cannot read people's spec scripts, because if you do, and like subconsciously later you write that into your actual comic, boy, you're gonna have a legal problem on your hand.
Oh, I know. Well, I know that because that was one of the first things people had recommended if I ever want to get into comics was don't read people's. A lot of people are like, Penny, can you read my script and tell me if it's any good? Like, no, because my end goal is to be writing. And if I use anything that I read 6 years ago because I was helping somebody out, I can't do it.
Yeah. So it's a complicated situation. I think we've beat to death. We're like, it's tough. But
end
I'm
verdict.
glad that,
what do you think should happen? Let's just end it with that.
I think, I would love to see Disney have to pay anyone for use of a character that's been around since 1962. But precedent being set, who knows if that would continue to do something, or if Disney would just lobby further, change their contracts to make it so that it never happens again. So I don't know. It's really tough. It's a tough situation.
It is tough. Yeah, I feel like in this particular case, what I would like to see, because it is Disney, like when Disney, when you bought Marvel, you bought thousands of creators' ideas, and you are big enough where you can shoulder the burden of taking care of these people.
Yeah.
And you have enough money, but like we know they're not going to spend it. Like they could have just, like, remember when Netflix ended their contract and like they had to wait, and if they hadn't waited the certain allotted amount of time between the show's ending and like a certain period of time, then they would have had to pay a fee to use a character. And it's like, just pay the fee.
Right.
It's pennies to you. It's less than pennies to you.
Exactly.
But you know they're like, no, a penny, never. And it's like, dude.
Well, the fact that they're probably from the looks of things, bringing in half of the cast of the original. I feel like everyone's been told that they've been approached except the Iron Fist guy.
Yeah, well, fine.
They're like, you know what? We don't need. We might just put Shang-Chi in that spot now. Like, sorry.
Yeah, we just might not use Iron Fist for the next 20 years.
Anyway, guys, we got to the point of our discussion, and then we ran out of disk space. We had to fix that. But let's just go ahead and say. It still is, bro. But we are at the end of our discussion anyway. I hope you enjoyed this chat here at absolutely Marvel and DC. My name is Benny. That is Sal. And that is Dylan. And if you want to keep up to date on all of our TV show discussions, movie discussions, theories, and just random things that we watch and enjoy, I swear, me and Dylan are going to do that cartoon thing real soon. Don't forget to hit that little bell, turn on notifications, and you will know when the new videos are coming out right here at Absolutely Marvel and DC. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time right here.